let's say we're talking about Tidal, and it's related to Tidal, we could ask you to stay on Tidal. And if it's also, number 3, if there's anybody in the room who works for a certain hi-fi company, or is a journalist or whatever, or runs a forum or anything like that, I'd like you to declare that up front if you can, please. So we'll kick things off. Michael, you want to start?
Yeah, I think a good way to start is by show of hands, who here streams Tidal?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and how about Spotify? All right, yeah, so everyone.
Is anybody here in this room streaming Cobras yet? I know it's not officially available, but there's some people. Are you guys using VPNs? I just like you found a way, right?
I have no knowledge of what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Okay. All right. Okay.
This is all on film, by the way.
Right.
I was just told it's going to be turned on this month in the United States. Who knows?
Right, but we're talking about what people are doing right now. Does anybody use Apple Music? Going to show of hands for Apple Music? 1. What about Pandora?
Yes.
Ah, because that's quite popular in the USA, isn't it? Yes. It's only available in the USA because I don't live here. So right, okay. Would it be fair to say that Tidal is the most popular streaming service in this room today?
Oh, by the show of hands?
Yeah. Does anybody want to tell us why? Why are you with Tidal and not with Spotify or with another streaming service? Yes, sir.
Tidal markets high res.
Tell me again, sorry?
Tidal markets high res.
So Tidal streams in high res?
That's what they sell.
Yes,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
MQA.
So you're in it for MQA, sir, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Can we get a show of hands?
Great stuff. They have an awesome selection.
Right. Anybody,
Yeah.
show of hands for people who are primarily into Tidal because of MQA's support. There's a few. What about a show of hands of people who are doing Tidal but are indifferent to the MQA support? And I assume you guys read book streaming, right? Okay.
And don't forget Rune.
Okay, so tell us why have you mentioned Rune, sir?
I love Rune as an interface, and Tidal is currently the only thing supported for a music service to augment my personal music collection.
Huh.
And that and it being lossless, that's the reason I'm paying for both Tidal and Spotify.
Yes, sir.
I subscribe to Spotify and Tidal. Spotify because they have better analytics for music discovery, and Tidal for better playback.
Okay.
And do you use Rune as well?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. Not yet.
Yeah.
Can we get a show of hands? Again, sorry. People who are using Rune and Tidal together. Oh wow, so it's almost the same as the Tidal people, isn't it? Right, okay, that is interesting. All right. Do you want to? Should we move on, or do you want to?
Yeah, maybe. I think we're heading in that direction again.
Okay. This is a question about, where do you stream music? Where in your life, I stream music obviously in my lounge room, right? But I also stream it out in the street. I don't have a car, so I don't do it in a car. But I guess people, I'm trying to get a feel for where people stream music. Do you want to?
Well, yeah, I think there's been talk of this, I guess trifecta: home, car, and portable for streaming, or really just for an interface. Having a consistent interface seamlessly between, if you leave your house or if you get in your car, and this has kind of been this ideal goal. And so for me, that's not the case at the moment. So I use Rune/Tidal at home. I use Tidal when I'm on the go. One of the things prior to this trip is download offlining Tidal content for the plane ride, and also for listening in the hotel after the show, so I can refresh my musical brain with things I enjoy. But also, yeah. So in the car, depending on obviously what car you have, you can now use your phone to feed your car system. So, you know, Amazon is clearly making steps in this direction with their voice control.
Okay, we'll come to that
Okay.
later maybe.
I'm
But
jumping ahead.
yeah. Goosey, you got a question?
I wanted to mention that you are missing a key component for a lot of people in the tech industry, especially. We listen to a lot of work. Because
yeah.
we're mentally stimulated in our
Sure.
jobs, and
Right.
it makes sense for us to be sitting at our desk. I actually have a fairly expensive system I bought here at Can Jam in over a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I listen through this on my phone. I mean, it does kind of come to mobile, but my system at work, I've got a wireless charger, I've got a USB interface, and I plug my phone into what would be traditionally a home-style system with headphones at work.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I missed that because I never leave my barn.
Who listens to who streams music at work with headphones? Can we get a show of hands on that?
Earbuds, not headphones.
Well, earbuds or headphones. I mean, I'm going to assume that people are not blaring speakers at work, right?
Yeah, we are.
Some people are, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Do
All
you
right.
have an office, a private office?
Of course.
Yeah.
But it leaks out into the rest of the farming.
Yeah.
Does anybody use Tidal, Spotify, streaming service out in the street? Or, I mean, show of hands, who streams outside of the house and outside of work? Yeah, because I definitely do. I'm actually going to give a plug to a company, actually. So I don't know whether you guys are aware of this. This is kind of 2 years old now. This is the LG V30 smartphone. This gentleman's got one here.
It's your fault.
It's my fault, is it? Okay. Generally, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but smartphones don't sound, they're okay. They're okay generally, right? iPhone is kind of punchy, but it's a bit tonally lacking somewhere. The reason this LG phone is special is that LG paid close attention to the DAC chip, the DAC headphone chip they put in here. It's an ESS chip, so it's aimed at people who, not audiophiles, it's aimed at people who care about sound quality. This is where they're pitching this. This is also, I don't know whether the successor to this yet, I think it's the V40, was announced 3 days ago. This is also, I think, the only phone in the world that does MQA masters on Tidal,
Yes.
including offline,
Yes.
right? But I don't have it for that. I have it because this phone sounds awesome with Spotify. I listen to a lot of electronic music on SoundCloud. Some of you might be horrified by that on two fronts, but lossy streaming, I still would prefer to have a good sounding piece of hardware before I worry about the quality of the stream. And hoping that SoundCloud are going to stream losslessly is a pipe dream, really. But anyway, that's what I use outside of the house. I never go anywhere without it, and I don't have to get, the beauty of this is I don't have to get a separate DAP. You want to talk about the DAP, the digital audio player? Because most of those don't do streaming.
Yeah, well, that's another
It's
interesting
changing.
question. Who here uses a DAP?
So you've got an LG V30 and a DAP.
And because of your article, I'm trying to decide whether I'm ready to give up my DAP or not. I'm on the fence.
Okay.
But I'm with you. I would love to have just this. That
Right.
would be great.
Because from the Google Play Store, I can install any streaming service I want with this phone. So it's not just Tidal. I mean, I've been listening to Qobuz on this, because I live in Germany, right? So Qobuz is available there. I will say this, and I told David Solomon, was here before, he's handling the promotion of Qobuz. I wasn't going to tell him, I promise I won't say anything about it, but I am going to actually, is that I think, this is a super nerdy comment, right? So brace yourselves. Qobuz on this phone, the Qobuz app sounds better than the Tidal app for Redbook. I'm not worried about the high res thing, you know. For Redbook, if I offline in Tidal, offline in Qobuz sounds slightly better with this phone. That doesn't mean it's going to be the same with an iPhone. I don't know, not yet. But I think that's interesting that the software influences sound quality as we find on desktops, right? All software sounds different, right? Or I don't know how people are going to go with that, but we'll see. All right. Should we move on?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. This is a big question I think that a lot of people want to know about. you want to start this one, Michael?
No, I will, sure. What matters most, that, you know, this is like chicken or egg.
Yeah.
In my experience, they both matter. And I just had a conversation with someone about this, actually. There's, some people have this notion that digital is kind of bulletproof in terms of sound quality. So all you need to do is buy a really good DAC and you're done. But I find that's not the case. The entire delivery system influences the output, you know, and we can talk about why that could be the case, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just stating experience. So yeah, although I would say, certainly in my system, I've spent the bulk of the money in terms of these two components on the DAC.
So you know what we're talking about here with the streamer side, right? So like a digital streamer that then feeds into a DAC. Sometimes it's built into the DAC, sometimes it's room ready, but it's a streaming board that then feeds the DAC. Now I've reviewed a lot of DACs in the last 8 years, many DACs. I've never found one, I don't think, that is immune to the quality of the source coming in over USB, coax, I2S sometimes, not one. And they all talk about, well, we've got galvanic isolation. The marketing departments are doing a great job by trying to convince you guys that it doesn't matter what streamer you hook in, but if you take a Google Chromecast and Toslink out of that, it sounds flat. So you might get a really good DAC and then hook it at Chromecast and go, well, what the hell? Like, it's meant to be ones and zeros, and this is, Toslink is it's an optical signal, so there's no noise can't carry through. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not very good at explaining why Toslink sounds so weak, but it does in many cases, right?
In my experience, yeah.
I had a long chat with Gordon Rankin. Do you know who Gordon Rankin is? Yeah. Mr. USB, the guy that did the Dragonfly for AudioQuest. I had a long chat with him 2 days ago because I came here early, and I was asking him why, what is going on? Why do DACs seem to why are they so susceptible to upstream changes? And really, I will put the video, I did a video interview, I'll put it online, but he did say that it's all about noise, all about electrical noise. Really, that is the the big bugaboo that messes up the sound quality. And when we talk about messing up, we're talking about these little differences, right? This is why we're here, isn't it? Because most people will be like, that sounds the same as that, right? But when we were putting this presentation together, we were kind of tossing up how far to go into the technical side, how nerdy to get, and how just like every man to be about this. So this was only put in the last minute. Yes, sir.
I would think that there's more difference between MP3 and Redbook than there is between most DACs.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I guess there could be. Yes, there are big. There can be big differences. Then we get down to mastering quality.
Yeah, well, now I was just going to say that. I've heard MP3 files sound really good, and I've heard some.
You guys speaking next, MP3 files are tremendous.
Yeah, yeah, and also I've heard high-res files sound not so good at all.
Right.
So, again, just speaking from experience, I've never been comfortable relying on file format to define a certain level of quality, because for me, it gets back to the recorded. Exactly. So most of the music I listen to streaming, and I use Tidal and Rune, is Redbook, and that's simply because most of the music I enjoy is only available in Redbook. But I never find myself feeling I'm lacking something in that equation, ever. Tidal, well, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself again.
No, it's fine. You can, well, let's go to the next question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, sir, go on.
Sorry, just come back to the other
Just
question.
take a microphone from behind you.
From a practical standpoint, how does one find that combination of streamer and DAC? Other than like buying and selling for a couple of years, is there a shortcut to that process? The obvious solution is just kind of finding what other people are listening to, but they may have like an analytical taste, but an overly sweet taste that may not be your taste.
You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I've got a recommendation for anybody unsure about how streamer quality will influence the sound of their DAC, right? You probably think, well, I want to get most out of my DAC, but I don't want to spend big and then find that I'm stuck with this $5 grand, $10 grand streamer. like you say, then you have to sell and get something else, you take a hit on the sale. Raspberry Pi. You know what Raspberry Pi is? Right. USB out of Raspberry Pi, nah, it's not great. It's okay, 35 bucks, it gets you up and running. But there's a whole world of hats, audio hats, right? Circuit boards that fit on top of a Raspberry Pi that have either cleaned up USB output, spin-off output. So you can put together a streamer that does many, you can make it behave like a squeeze box, a room ready endpoint, to Spotify Connect. You can put it together for about 200 bucks. And if you're unsure, that's why I would recommend you start. Spend $200 and then everything you try after that needs to be, what's the word? Benchmarked? I don't want to use that word.
Well, it's a reference point.
Yeah, it's a good reference point saying, how much do I get from these extra things? Because I'd say the world of Raspberry Pi is really going to shake up the high-end streamer market. Because you're looking at 10 grand for a streamer, and you go, oh, but this Raspberry Pi, I mean, it's not quite as good, but and they're getting better and better and better. And this is the thing, this whole hack thing is really in its infancy, and I think there's a tremendous potential for these things to become $500 combinations and really start worrying manufacturers, I won't name them, who sell gear at like 2 grand, 3 grand. So I don't know whether that answers your question in terms of...
I'm too much of a snob. I mean, I want the good stuff.
Well, this is a thing, like, so snobbery is I think in streaming, for me, I see it as a big problem. People look at Spotify and go, ugh, lossy codecs, it's not for me. But it can sound really good. I mean, I stream Spotify Connect through a pair of the Kefel's 50 wireless. I think for the majority, even the majority of audiophiles in this show, they'd be blown away by that. I don't know. Do you want to? Like you've had experience with high-end streamers, right?
Yeah, I have to own one.
Right.
And I've had a lot of experience with streamers, reviewing them in my past life, roughly 6.5 years or so. And while I'll name a specific brand. I mean, the Sonore Micro Rendu was one of the first to come out, which I think price-wise is somewhere in the 500 range.
Yeah.
Without a power supply. And that if you go from, let's say, a laptop to that, in my experience, you will hear a significant improvement.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, most people, I think, if you do that comparison, you'll hear a significant improvement. For me, I bought the DCS network bridge.
Did you buy that? I didn't know you bought that. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
For a number of reasons. And I think this gets back to a previous conversation and maybe to your question, and that is the DAC that I own, which is the Total DAC, D17, the AES input is superior to the other inputs. Just sounds better. I mean, I used the Micro Rendu going USB out to it for a long time, and then when I reviewed the network bridge, I was able to go AES. And it's another one, and I say it this way, a significant difference. But I think with word inflation, I'm saying that from my experience, as someone who spends the majority of every day doing these kind of comparisons. So it's significant for me, but perhaps for a casual listener, that difference would be inconsequential, especially considering the price difference. And also, again, back to the DAC. I've had manufacturers say to me, of streaming devices, well, the DACs you're using aren't really good USB DACs. And it's like, yeah, but your customers aren't going to be restricted to what DAC they own because you know what I'm saying? So it becomes, it's a difficult question to answer universally because you've got dependencies.
It's like a seesaw, isn't it? You want to work out. I mean, when I first started out reviewing DACs in 2010, the conversation about streamers and what you fed them wasn't as loud as it is today. And the more gear I come across, the more I would say, if you've got 10 grand, I would spend maybe half on a DAC and half on the streamer, if not, more in towards the streamer, because the streamer really gets the most from the DAC. that, I don't know, I mean, that's, yeah.
One thing I find interesting, and this is a personal preference, and I really like the idea of less boxes over time. If I wasn't a reviewer, I wouldn't have so many boxes in my hi-fi. I recently, and we are certainly seeing more and more, I think we should call them streaming integrated amplifiers and streaming DACs. So you can come Ethernet directly into this device.
Yeah.
And you don't need, no need for the separate boxes. And if, people would ask me for my opinion, if they were building a system, I would go very strongly towards less boxes. Just as an example of a recent component I reviewed is the Air EX8. Does everybody, that's an all-in-one integrated amplifier, it's a streaming integrated amplifier. And it's room ready. So you just, you can literally go Ethernet in, speaker cables, and you're done. And you can stream from Tidal, you can stream from your library. So that means if someone's just starting out, let's say, and they don't have a huge music library of their own, they buy this one box, they connect it to the network, they connect it to their speakers, and they have access to millions of albums when they turn it on. And that's a very, sorry for the word, but that's a very sexy proposition for someone who grew up listening to records. And being limited to what I can hear and buy to what the local Two Guys department store carried in terms of records. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is like a fantasy world I'm living in, where I can read a review of a new album and listen to it immediately for the cost of the service. So yeah, I'm a fan of the less box approach.
Yeah, me too. I've got an integrated amplifier made by a Norwegian company called Hegel. You aware of Hegel, right? And they've got a built-in DAC. And their streamer that they build in that does AirPlay, Spotify Connect. I don't know whether, I think Rune is coming. Oh, I shouldn't say on camera, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, the DAC in this thing is amazing. I've hooked in other DACs, but they don't sound quite as right as just the DAC in the unit, and I think that's very unusual. And the streamer inside is also unusual because it doesn't run Linux. They've coded it with assembly code. Now, that's as much as the technical part I understand, but it's done in a different way. So there are companies that are doing these Uniboxes in different ways, like the name Unity Atom is probably the most exciting thing I've ever played with a pair of speakers. It's got the big volume wheel on top, it's a little box like this, it's a streamer, it's a DAC, speaker amplifier, it's got the display on the front that shows the cover art. It's the whole package, it's the whole experience, and I think this is what Michael's trying to get to in a moment, is that it's not just about, it's not sound quality over everything else. The experience matters, the form matters, you have to look at this thing, and this is what I'm trying to get to with this question, is like how important is the UI when you're browsing music on a streaming service? Is it a little bit important or is it very important? It's good.
About the interface?
Yeah.
The only thing that's important, right? I mean,
Well-
when friends come to your house and they want to use your rig, to be able to hand them an iPad and let them have access to all kinds of music.
Right.
It's got to be intuitive enough and similar enough to something they've used like iTunes or something else.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's too confusing and they can't figure out how to use it. I play records, sorry.
Right, okay.
No apologies needed.
He's right, the UI has to pass the wife test, otherwise no value.
Well, I don't know whether I want to, the wife comment, sir, if you don't mind me saying so, is a bit icky, but I understand what you're trying to say with that. Like it needs to be accessible to everybody, right? And you need to be able to pass it around, it needs to be intuitive and not geeky. You know what I mean by really geeky interfaces?
File trees.
File trees. I mean, I'm a big fan of the file tree, but yeah. But I'm trying to think of, I don't want to pick on a piece of software, but some of them, not all software is built the same, is it? I mean, some...
It's just not as intuitive.
Right.
Just remember, good vibes only.
Okay, yeah, okay. This gentleman has a comment. Wait, so I need a microphone.
I completely agree, and this is why I basically won't look at a product doesn't support Rune any longer, because
Okay.
Rune is far and away the best. But there's a separate piece of this that I think gets overlooked too often, which is not just is the UI great, but will the UI still be supported in two?
That's huge to me, you know, in terms of living with
Yep.
music and having it accessible to other people. Of course, you know, it's not going to sound the same, but that's irrelevant, I think, in this scenario I'm thinking of.
Because you're talking about accessibility.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
this stuff needs to be accessible.
User
as well as
friendliness.
awesome, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Goose.
So, one of the pieces that when I first started getting into music streaming, I wasn't quite so into hi-fi, and I fell in love with Pandora because of the radio.
Right.
So how important do you think are those extra features? Because when I switch to Tidal, when I get into my hi-fi system, I miss Pandora radio. I wish I could have it with my hi-fi system. So, kind of tangential to how important the UI, how important are the extra features?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Very good, yeah.
You want to go?
Sure. I mean, for me, to speak to your point directly, that's where Rune Radio comes in. I always have Rune Radio set to the on position. So essentially what Rune Radio does, if I select an album to listen to, Rune will keep playing music that it finds to be somehow related. And that, you know, that can go, you know, when I'm reviewing something, when it first comes in, I usually leave it on 24/7. And I really do enjoy, I have to say, this is like this weird geek enjoyment, but so when I leave the barn, you know, I'm listening to something, and when I come in the morning, it's always fascinating to see what Rune has decided to play, you know, 8 hours later.
That's funny because I do the same thing. Like I leave Room Radio running overnight, just turn the volume down. I live in a two-bedroom upstairs, downstairs apartment. What you call it, maisonette? Is that what it's called here? That's what it's called in Europe, anyway.
No.
Okay. Well. Anyway, so I come down in the morning and go, I've not had this track for ages. But that's home streaming, so that's music stored on a hard drive that's streamed from my network, not from the cloud. And I think we're really focusing on cloud.
Well, but yeah, I mean, if you, you know, gosh, it seems like a Rune commercial, but it's what I use. So with the Rune interface with Tidal, you can add Tidal content to your library. It's not a purchase, it becomes part of your library, and as such, Rune Radio will play those Tidal-based tracks in addition to music you own.
We have to give the floor to this gentleman here. Because
Sorry, I got a lot of passion for
No,
this.
no,
It's
actually-
just a question.
Oh, go on.
So this, and I don't mean to be a party pooper on the Rune, but if someone owns a large, high quality, high res library of ripped vinyl, like that's really kick ass.
Yeah.
Does Rune make sense? Because right now I just traverse it, say with like my name, and I can hook up any DAC I want. I get different flavors, and I get that tree structure. It's not. Does Rune make sense for that, or is it only for Tidal?
Oh no, well, it works for any stored content. I don't know how it goes with vinyl rips.
But
because
there's no
obviously-
metadata though, right? I mean,
Well,
or
no,
there's
you
very
can tag
limited
them.
metadata.
You can tag vinyl rips as long as you segment the tracks properly and it matches with the Music Brains database. So the first track needs to be 4 minutes 12, the second track needs to be 2 minutes 9 or whatever. So as long as those match up, and I think it can create a match, then it will pull down the content. Otherwise, it'll be unknown artists or unknown.
Yeah, the metadata is very tricky business depending on what software you're using to rip your vinyl. So I know that Channel D, whose pure vinyl product, has been around a while, but they've, at Capitol Audio Fest, I saw a newer version of the software that auto-detects tracks from ripping vinyl. So that's kind of like, if I was seriously going to rip a large library, that's what I would use. Just to your point, Rune will read that metadata and present it.
But if I'm missing the metadata, like
Well,
I already have it ripped, like
You can
over
add
10
it with,
terabytes.
there are a bunch of apps. I mean, I use an app called MP3 Tag.
Yeah.
It's Windows. It runs on Mac now as well as Windows only. It's mp3tag.de. It's a German. I've been using it for like 15 years. You just right-click on a folder and it pulls up the files in that folder, and then you can tell it to try and look on different databases around the internet to pull in the metadata, or you can type it in yourself, and you can do batch editing as well. So you can select them all and go, these are all this artist, right? So New Order, right? This gentleman's got a New Order t-shirt. So you can go, New Order, that's the artist. Then Power Cuts and Lies is the album. Put those in. You can auto track numbers. So you can do that yourself. I'm worried that we're kind of steering a bit towards locally stored stuff, but I want to kind of move on because how are we doing for time? Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, well, what do we?
All right. Here we go.
Oh,
Oh, actually, sir, you had a gentleman in the New Order T-shirt. I wanted to give you the microphone because you're wearing a New Order T-shirt. And asked you so you have a question. So can we just wait for the microphone to come forward? Sure. This gentleman here with the white T-shirt. Thank you.
So I'm fairly new to hi-fi. My system, I do. This is probably sacrilegious at the moment, but I don't have an external DAC. I'm running a Blue Sound Node 2.
That's fine.
And
yeah.
it sounds
Yeah.
great. And I'm very happy with it. And what I like about it is, going back to the UI question, is the flexibility it gives me, which is I have Tidal. I also have Spotify. My wife mainly uses Spotify.
Right.
If she wants to connect, she can just Spotify connect. She's using the hi-fi. It works great. Whereas when I want to listen to it and I want to use Tidal, the integration on their own app there, what I find interesting is I do like it a little bit better than Tidal's own app on my phone. And the interesting part is their recommendations on Tidal on Blue Sound are different than the recommendations I have on Tidal, the app, and they're actually much better. I don't know what Blue Sound's doing there, but I do. And then when people come over, speaking of Bluetooth, Blue Sound Node 2, just pop on, say, connect to the Bluetooth, and you're good to go. And it really does. And if I do want to upgrade to an external DAC, I can do that straight from the Blue Sound as well.
You can, yeah. I mean, the Blue Sound is an excellent sounding piece. I think this is actually, you've reminded me of a very important point about this particular streaming family. So you know the Blue Sound stuff, right? What I love about Blue Sound is that they have an app for Android, iOS, but also Windows and Mac OS. So you can control it from whatever device, wherever you are in the house. It's not just a smartphone thing or a tablet thing. It's like Sonos. There's an app for almost every platform. And I think that's really powerful because you don't want to limit. People go, I've got a Windows computer and I want to be able to control music from the Blue Sound. That's important. Oh, well, I think it is. I don't know whether you guys do, but yeah. Can I just move on to this question here? Because I would love to get a show of hands. Who uses Bluetooth for audio somewhere in their life? Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that because I do worry that audiophiles tend to go a bit too, there's a tendency to become a bit snobbish about lossy streaming, right? Because it is lossy. I want to give a shout. I just bought these, so I'm giving these headphones a shout out because, I mean, I bought these with my own money. I think these are the most exciting headphones I have ever experienced, period. And that doesn't mean the best sounding, but these are $400 Sony. This is the new one, they're called the 1000X Mark III. As Michael joked with me earlier, they are also available in a men's color. So you can get them in black. I went for these. These stream Bluetooth, I stream Spotify, Bluetooth from my phone. I can also stream FLAC from my phone from this. And with the aptX codec, oh, they're playing now for some reason, I don't know why. These sound absolutely incredible. And if anybody's, never really, because some people don't get into headphones very easily. I think it's a terrific starting point. With the noise cancelling in this, it makes the wired headphone proposition a much tougher sell. And I'm only saying this because I had the version 1 of these, I didn't get the version 2. I cannot say enough good things about this pair of headphones, and they're Bluetooth. And I use these all the time on flights, in Germany, in the street, in the winter. They're too warm for the summer. Yes, sir?
What's the brand again?
Sony. Yeah, Sony are kicking ass with Bluetooth headphones, and have done for the last few years. I think they're better than the Bose, by the way. I will go on record as saying that, and I hope Bose don't sue me for saying that. I missed that.
Not very hard to be better.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm deaf. So, thank you, that gentleman got that joke. There's a hand up there, I think, with the gentleman with the check shirt.
this is a lot more, but I was just gonna second that. I've got the second version right
Oh,
here.
okay.
That's what I have been listening to.
And you
What I
like
do
it?
at work is primarily through these. 'Cause
Yeah.
Like the older gentleman up front, I work in an accounting firm.
Okay.
So, clicking all day long.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, I think they've had like 12 hours of a busy day, just fantastic.
Does anybody else want to share how they use Bluetooth in their audio world life at somewhere? Anybody else?
Got a hand in the
We got Goose again. And this gentleman then next as well.
So I've got two sets. First one I use, I rollerblade to and from work. I listen to audiobooks. So they're not the best headphones, but they work.
Yeah.
And I'm just listening to voice, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
The other set, and unfortunately I lost them, so it's the only problem I have. I had a pair of the Echo Box Bluetooth ones that are also aptX.
Yeah.
And was, again, also just absolutely blown away with aptX at the sound quality you can get over Bluetooth.
Do people know what aptX is? Oh, I get some murmuring, so maybe we should cover this very briefly. That's all right. So aptX is a codec made by company. Well, it's owned by Qualcomm now. And what it basically means is it's the transmission codec that sits between this phone and this pair of headphones, right? Now, when you talk about Bluetooth, this is the thing about Bluetooth. It doesn't always sound the same. So if you see on the box of your Bluetooth headphones, it says aptX, because Qualcomm love their partners to splash it across their packaging. So you go, oh, awesome, aptX. But what you don't know if you're an iPhone user, necessarily, if you're an iPhone user, there is no aptX in any iPhone. So if the smart headphone developers, what they'll do is they'll also put AAC support in their headphones or their streamer or whatever, so that when you stream from an iPhone or an iPad, you still get good quality Bluetooth streaming. If you don't get AAC or aptX, you're down at what's called SBC, which is, it doesn't sound as good. It just sounds a bit grainy and you kind of get that metallic feeling to music. I don't love it. So I make sure, if you are ever in the market for Bluetooth headphones or Bluetooth streamer, make sure that your source device supports the codecs that are on the headphones or the streamer. Very important. Well, it is for me. Yeah. Okay, we got this another question here or a comment.
Okay, so I'm quite new to all this. Hopefully my question is not too elementary for this group. But like the gentleman back there, I use Pandora Radio, and I have my own music collection in iTunes. And I stream all that over Bluetooth into a DAC, which is a couple of $100 into the amp.
Yeah.
So if I go from there into Roon and Tidal, etc., what should I expect to see that's better? Just much better sound?
If you're going over Bluetooth?
Yeah.
I don't think you'll hear any necessarily.
Because that's the weakest link.
Sorry about that.
Because that's the weak link in my system, Bluetooth?
Well, I would say I would encourage you to go direct wired.
Okay.
Somehow. What are you streaming from and what are you streaming?
iPad.
Okay.
And that's because then I don't have to walk up to change things. So
Sure.
the convenience, the experience, as you said, is huge.
So you could take, if you can power the iPad independently, you can get the lightning adapter dongle and go Bluetooth out the iPad and into a DAC. But I would even recommend going out of the iPad's headphone socket, 3.5mm cable into your amplification or preamp.
Wow. Okay.
That's not as convenient. That's the thing about Bluetooth, isn't it? It's really convenient. There's no wires. So now you're involved in wires. So I would maybe get a streamer that you can remote control with your iPad.
Okay.
Right?
So just one other quick question. Roon's been mentioned so many times in
sorry.
this discussion, but I couldn't find them in this book. Are they not displaying here?
They're not here, no. Well, they are. There's two guys from Roon knocking about, but they have no official presence apart from being room ready. There are many room ready devices all around the show, but they don't have an official.
Yeah,
presence
if you go to their website, I believe there's still an active page of partners, so you can see what devices here even are room ready. There's a lot of them.
Can I ask a real quick?
Yeah, sure. Like we're just going to wait for the microphone to come down because I know
Sure.
that they need to record this for.
From your experience with Roon Radio, how do the analytics compare to Spotify? Because Spotify is really good finding music that I like, whereas like Tidal's terrible.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is going to be a very personal thing. You know, I don't find, or let me put it in the positive way, I get value from Rune's suggestions. But I've certainly spoken to people who that's not the case for them. You know, and this also gets, you can say that same thing about streaming services. You know, some people, I do enjoy Tidal because their library very much matches my tastes. For some people, I think Qobuz, I pronounce that a different way every time I say it. I think we all know what I'm talking about. They have a different library, and it's much deeper in certain areas. Like I find, you know, with their older, more eclectic jazz, classical, Qobuz is much better.
Does anybody here choose their streaming service based upon the library content available? Or do you just, is it just about the quality of the stream? I mean, okay. Both? Because I listen to a lot of, does anybody here listen to SoundCloud? Because I use SoundCloud an awful lot for DJ techno mixes. Again, that's probably horror show for most people.
Yeah, that reminds me, I just want to throw in a pitch for one of my favorite, is Bandcamp.
Right.
Bandcamp is absolutely my favorite place to buy music because of the way the company is structured, in that we know where the money goes, and it goes to the artists. And they also offer, when you purchase music from the Bandcamp site, they also have a streaming app, so you can stream your purchases. I don't do that very often because, I guess, just to get to this, I think was going to come up later, but just to get to the point of it. So for me, Tidal, streaming, not only Tidal, but streaming in itself is like the world's largest record store for me. So when I find music I like, I buy it.
Yes.
And so the first, whenever, if I listen to something on Tidal and I like it, I do the band name, the album name, and Bandcamp, because that's where I'll buy it from, if it's available. And then if not, then, you know, of course, it's always available from somewhere. But Bandcamp, I would highly recommend checking it out if you're interested in new music of all kinds. And they also make a lot of great recommendations as well. Their software.
But they're not trying to be a comprehensive streaming service, though.
No, not at all. But for any music that is available to purchase, you can listen to it prior to purchasing.
Right.
Typically the entire album. Yeah.
One thing I've noticed is I started to stream, and I do a lot of listening to streaming outside of home, office, car, and stuff like that, is I'm finding I'm buying more because I'm finding, oh, I like this, I buy this, or I then, as a probably more relevant to the seminar before, but I'm listening to my all-time favorite radio station, KPIG, out of Watsonville, California, and I hear John Langford's Four Lost Souls, and I'm going, okay, I not only better buy this, I better hop down to the Troubadour December 7th and catch it live.
Should we get a show of hands? Who here thinks that they buy more music now because they can access on streaming? Your helmet's
huge, yeah, huge.
Right, you actually buy more.
You sample it on Tidal, and I run up to Gary's and buy it.
I don't know, because I listen to streaming just to listen to streaming. I listen to albums. I mean, Stephen Mehias, would you care to declare your industry affiliation before talking?
No.
I work with Audio Cost.
Okay, thank you.
So for me, the equation is very simple. The more music I discover, the more music I purchase.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for a lot of people, it's not that way. For a lot of people, it's if they can get it for free, why buy it?
Right.
But yeah, I buy way more now that I stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
You hear more stuff, you buy it.
Yeah.
On vinyl. I buy it on vinyl.
Very close friends who tell me they'll never purchase another album because Spotify gives it to them for free.
Well, while this microphone moves around to the gentleman up there in the black t-shirt and jacket, I think it's worth noting that download sales have fallen off a cliff in the last 2 years.
Yes.
Probably more so than CDs, actually. They're just, I mean, downloads are almost finished. Almost. I mean, not completely, but.
I'm one of the people who buys way less music with streaming. And I know because I've done an annual count of how many CDs and downloads I've purchased for the last 10 years. Yeah. And I can see the drastic drop. And I think what's going on is now it's a very tall bar to get into my library, right? My personal library, because the thing I find strange as the longer I'm involved in this is that the most valuable thing I have is essentially the metadata of the 30 plus years of what albums I thought were good enough to buy and keep. And nobody else has that list, right? There's no, like, that is the single most valuable piece of digital information in my life, because you can't duplicate that any other way. And so now, for me to buy something, it goes in there, it has to be really good. It used to be, I'd have to buy a lot more than was going to be my favorite. Like back in the days of records and CDs, you'd buy a lot of things because you think maybe it's an album you're really going to like. And at the end of the year, when you tally them all up, probably 30% of what I bought, actually I didn't like. If I had to do over again, I wouldn't have bought it, because until I had a chance to listen to it. So now when I'm on Tidal and I find an album I really love, I buy it, absolutely. But there's a lot of albums that I listen to a few times on Tidal, and I say, yeah, this is great, but I don't really love it. And so that, to me, my buying is, I'm getting the things I really like without as many of the things that maybe I thought I liked, but then I don't.
I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think I wonder if...
Do you want to wait for the microphone, Stephen, just because of recording?
Oh, yeah. So I think that's fascinating. And while I absolutely appreciate what you just said, I wonder if the streaming service itself and your access to streaming has changed the definition of a love for you. Has it become a matter of space? Something along those lines? I think the way we interact with technologies influences the way we feel emotionally and the connections we form with music in this case. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so interesting I can't talk.
Can we just pass the mic on to this gentleman here? Thank you.
Hi, I listen to Spotify a lot, and sometimes I look at my Spotify playlist and I have 3 or 4 songs from the same album. I go out and I try to buy that album, but even Amazon doesn't have as many CDs. So sometimes you can buy it in vinyl, but it's hard to find CDs, because I like to buy the CD and then I like to upload it at a higher resolution. But I tried to do that last week, and it was a bluegrass CD. Amazon didn't have it.
Right.
They don't like bluegrass.
Yeah, it does not. But I think if you look at Amazon, I don't think they sell nearly as many CDs as they sold even 3 years ago. As we know, Best Buy doesn't sell. I was in Best Buy just 2 days ago. No CDs, but they have vinyl now.
Yeah.
At Best Buy, which is
which records to Target.
I did some time-wise. What time are we at?
I'm gonna say something not controversial now, but a little bit out there. In the conversation about high-res, the fanaticism that high-res audio discussion facilitates is obfuscating the slow erosion of Red Book streaming, or the value of Red Book streaming and CDs themselves. I know we all like to kind of get into like 24/192, but the library is this small, right? And the library for Red Book is wider than I can ever stretch my hand. It's enormous. So I think we need to keep I want to keep my eye on Red Book lossless streaming. Like I have Tidal not for high res. Like if I stream something and it comes down as an MQA master or a high res on Cobas, that's nice, that's cool, but I have it mainly for lossless streaming. And also because I'm so worried, maybe I'm like one of these kind of guys that builds the bunker. Like I treat my hard drive at home that I use for my Rune library as my own personal streaming service. So any record I really love, like you were talking about that, I buy it. So I'll stream it for a while, maybe on Tidal, maybe, but a lot of them I just go and buy instantly. I buy a lot of vinyl, and then I'll try and buy a download, or if not, I'll buy the CD and rip the CD. So I've got it at home, because I don't trust streaming services to keep all the music all of the time. This is something I haven't touched on yet today, because some artists wake up one day, they're grumpy, mentioning no names, and then they just decide that they're going to pull their catalog from a streaming service. So all of a sudden you can't stream anything by Neil Young. for example, right? And then a month later, you know, he's had a better month or whatever, and it's all back again. And I don't like to, it's too risky for me. I know it sounds a bit silly, but, so I like to treat my home network as my private streaming service. And then anything else, I like add SoundCloud with a Chromecast or whatever. Can we get the microphone to the gentleman in the back there, because he hasn't asked a question yet.
Yeah. That's what
I think there's some point to, perhaps it's the art, when we're appreciating art, right? So it's a piece of art, so if there's an intrinsic value to something physical also, versus something you can't actually get your hands on.
Yeah.
So I think there's something lost in perhaps not appreciating it that way.
But isn't this why downloads, sales are falling off a cliff? Because you're paying almost as much as you would for a CD, and you don't get anything. You just get these intangible files. And I mean, the CD renaissance is not there yet, but it'll come. Where people are going to be back into CDs in a couple of years. Definitely. They will. People will be buying them. They'll be going, oh, I missed this tangibility. The streaming thing was cool for a while. I want to own the stuff. So if you want to buy CDs, get into it now, because they're dirt cheap all over the world.
I was in a used record store about a month ago, and there were two women shopping together and buying a ton of CDs. And they told the guy that's running the store that they were sick of streaming.
Huh.
And they want to own their music again.
Because people miss, I mean, I've said this before many times, I'll say it again. People miss having stuff in their house. Because if you take away the vinyl, take away the CDs, the books, they're all digitized, photos digitized, you're left with your furniture and you. And you're just like, oh, this is kind of awkward, right? There's nothing to look at. You don't have stuff to surround you to make you feel comfortable in yourself. So people miss stuff. Pardon?
Buy more liquor.
Buy more liquor. Well, yeah, that's one way around it. I'm very conscious of time. Is it Randy? Yeah.
I'm just curious if we've exhausted the conversation on music discovery. That's why I first got into Spotify, I mean, long time ago. And I've found it to be the best, but I'm not satisfied. I like a lot of eclectic music and I have a hard time finding it. Where can I look?
Oh, interesting.
Well, what
kind of music?
Yeah, how would you put it into any kind of genres?
Oh goodness, techno, blues, world music, Arabian. I just really want to hear new stuff.
Slacker radio?
I subscribe to Slacker.
Do you?
Okay.
It used to be AOL.
I find a lot of interesting music, and I also appreciate eclectic music, I guess we'll say. And I actually tune into radio. Internet radio for that. Yeah, there's some stations. I'm a huge fan of WPRB, the Princeton radio station. They're relatively local to me, but nonetheless, I mean, their DJs are very eclectic. And there's a blues specific show. There's a world, you know, for lack of a better term, world music specific show. I do, you know, sorry, I got a thought rattling around my head. It needs to come out. We have two daughters who are in their 20s. So they've never really purchased music. You know, it's just that it was not in the realm of even an interest. But our one daughter's iPhone got broken. They're physically damaged. And she had it backed up. And the two things she was most upset about were the loss of her photographs and her playlists. She was going on about these because she's kept every playlist she ever made. For her, this was a way back to look back in time, you know, 3 years or something, and rediscover the music that she listened to when she was 16. You know what I'm saying? And that was very foreign to me, you know. But this emotional, there have been people who have suggested that streaming kind of cuts off that emotional connection to music because it's too easy, it's too accessible, and so on. But in that very limited example, that's absolutely not the case at all. You know, it was, you know, she had this emotional attachment to history, and then for her, it wasn't in a physical collection, but it was in the form of a playlist. You know, and that to me was kind of like lovely. And then the other thing I'll just say, kind of attached to that, is she and I were driving fairly recently, and as Sam, I was driving, listening to the radio, and as Sam Cooke song came on, and she started to sing along. And I was like, wow, how do you know this? And she was like, oh, well, she found it through streaming. She had gotten into Aretha Franklin, and somehow it led her, and to me, that has such tremendous value. To me, that's like this big plus sign in the streaming column that negates the view that streaming, kind of cuts off this real physical connection, emotional connection to music. I find it's like the opposite. But,
How are we doing time? 1 minute. All right. Well, I'm going to finish with this then, because Michael and I have been discussing this a lot recently in terms of the nature of conversations about hi-fi. Now, we've all been in this room for the last hour. We've all had I think we've had a wonderful conversation. No one has been a dick, right? And you see this, I gotta say, you see this a lot online. So we wanted to give it a whirl in trying to create a website called hifiqa.com, where we ask questions and we're inviting people to offer up their answers. You can also ask a question on there, and we're going to moderate. We're going to moderate the questions. Like, do we like this question? Yeah, we'll let this one go. And trying to facilitate a discussion like this online, but with the same 3 golden rules that we open with today of good vibes only, staying on topic, and declaring any hi-fi industry affiliations. We're just doing this as a kind of an experiment to see how it works. Is it live yet?
It is now.
Okay, it's live now. hifiqa.com. There are a few questions there. We'd love you to have your input. It doesn't matter whether you're a beginner or advanced or not. That would be super. Thank you so much for today. I really enjoyed that.